Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf Yomi, which is Nedarim Daf Ches. We are holding right on the bottom of Zayin Amud Beis, the last couple of words on the Daf. V'amarav Gidul Amarav. Here come another couple halachis in the name of Rav. Number one, Menayin shenishboin l'kayim es mitzvah. How do we know? From where do we learn that one can actually make a shavua to commit himself, to oblige himself to fulfill a mitzvah, which he is obliged to do in any case? How do we know that that works? Shenemar, as the pasuk in Tehillim says, David HaMelech speaking, Nishbati v'akayema. I swore, and I fulfilled that shavua. What was the shavua for? What was it meant to accomplish? I wasn't inventing my own obligations. It was a shvua lishmar mishpatetzit kecha, to keep your righteous laws, your mitzvahs, mitzvahs HaTorah, mitzvahs Hashem Yisbarach. I made a shvua to compel myself to fulfill those mitzvahs. Now, it would seem that Rav is introducing a new concept, because you see, we are all obligated to do mitzvahs. In fact, we took upon ourselves a shvua, an oath, to commit ourselves to those mitzvahs, to fulfill the entire Torah, and now you're sort of adding another shvua on top of that. Can that work? Asks the Gemara, how does that work? We already have a shvua imposed upon us from way back. We have committed. We have made a bris way back at Har Sinai to keep the entire Torah. You can't double dip shvuos. You can't add a shvua on top of a shvua. Now, as the Ran points out, the Gemara figures that Rav was telling us just that. You can make a shvua on something which you are already mushba v'omed. You are meant to do so because of a pre-existing shvua. And the question is how? How can that be? Because the Gemara in shvuos actually learns from a pasuk it doesn't work. You can't double obligate yourself. Now, when it comes to Malchus, says the Ran, meaning when it comes to the standard shavua procedure which results in a chiyuv carbon upon violation, that doesn't work if it's already something you're meant to do. But Malchus, says the Ran, of course, would apply if a person violates his words, his commitment. Even if it's a shvua on top of a shvua, Malchus would apply, but that's posh, that's simple. Lo yachal dvari, you're not meant to profane your words. You don't need Rav to come tell us that. So bottom line is, a mitzvah is already rooted in shvua. You're going to add a shvua on top of that to bring about a chiyuv karban if he violates the shvua. We know that's not so. You can't do a shvua on top of another shvua. Ela kamash mulan, says the Gemara. You know what Rav really meant to say? He wasn't saying that it's a full-fledged shvua which carries the standard shvua consequence. Rather, he was saying like this: the shari le'inish le'zeruzi nafshi. If a person wants to, get himself going, a person's allowed to use lashon shvua and even employ the name of Hashem to be mezaros himself, to encourage himself to keep those mitzvahs. And what's the point of Rav telling us that? So we have several, pshatim. We have the Ran first. The Ran says, even a person who is not accustomed to making shvuos, for the most part, people try to avoid making shvuos, but it is a davar hagun. It is something appropriate and recommended to use the power of shvua to compel the Yetzer Hara, to override the evil inclination, and to ensure fulfillment of mitzvahs. There's a vart from Bali Musar. The question is, what happened to Bechira? Hashem wants us to, pick our way through life, to pick and choose through life, not to compel ourselves. So the vart is that's the biggest Bechira, that's the biggest choice. The best and most powerful, impactful, and effective method of bechira, a free will, is to bring about upon ourselves a situation where we can no longer deviate. So we choose not to choose. That's the biggest choice. That's the best bechira. The Rosh adds, the Chiddush of Rav is, it's not considered masker Shem Shemayim Levatala. So he's employing Hashem's name in this shvuah, which is just a sort of a zeros to get yourself going. It's okay. So bottom line is, it's not really a full-fledged shvuah, because the mitzvah you want to do in any case. And ein shvuah chala al shvuah. But you can use shvuah language to be mezarez yourself, to add some enthusiasm and commitment to ensure that you fulfill Hashem's mitzvahs. So it's a new concept of shvuah. It's a shvuah sort of zeros. You're committing to add to add more motivation and more commitment to your mitzvahs. V'amar Gidol Amar Rav. Here comes halacha number 2 in the name of Rav. Ha'imar, a fellow gets up and says, I'm making a shvuah that Ashkim ve'eshne perek. I will get up early tomorrow and learn this perek, learn this daf. Ashne mesechta zu. I will learn this mesechta. Nedar gadol, nadar leilokei Yisrael. In this case, says the Gemara, it's a real neder. And the Ram points out lashon neder and lashon shvuah many times interchangeable, because technically it's not a neder. A neder involves applying isser to an item. The achila of this item is asur to me. The use of this item, it's something which is chefta related, as we learned back on the Beis and Beis. Here it's person related. I'm committing to get up and do that. Typically that's associated with shavua. So the Ran says you're right. It's just another way of saying shavua. But the bottom line is, it takes effect. Neder gadol. This is a great neder, a great commitment. Nadar leilokei Yisrael. And the question is, what do you mean? To get up and learn? That's a mitzvah. It's a chiyuv min ha-Torah. The Ran says one is chayiv to learn. Tamid yom v'layla kifi kayichay. A person is meant to learn at every possible moment, as much as his ability and his schedule allows him. So how can you make a shvuah on top of a pre-existing chiyuv, which in itself is a manifestation of that prehistoric shvuah from Har Sinai? Asks the Gemara, Balei Mushbava Oimeid mi Har Sinayu. Ve'in shvuah chala al shvuah. His present day shvuah can't be added to a pre-existing shvuah. He's already mechuyev to learn Torah. Okay, says the Gemara, my kamashmon. So what would you like to suggest? Dafil is a ruzi ba'alma? True, it's not a proper shvuah, but to a certain extent it's something which commits him. It's mezarasim. And that's the shvuah we're speaking about. Not a standard shvuah, but rather a shvuah zeros, like we mentioned before, which spurs him to be mekayim that mitzvah. Well, Hainu de Rav Gidol kamaisa. That was halacha number 1 of Rav, quoted by Rav Gidol before. Why the repetition? This concept of a shvuah to mezaraz yourself has already been discussed before. Answers the Gemara, you're 100% right. Halacha number 2. The shvuah to get up early and learn actually is chal. Does work. Does create a new chiyuv. What do you mean? I already have a chiyuv to learn. Ha kamash mon the chiddush here is kiv on the iboy potar nafshe bikriyashma shachris va'arvis. Since technically a person can, be yotze, he can exempt himself from the minimum chiyuv of Talmud Torah just by saying Krishma in the morning and at night. The pasuk says we are meant to engage in Torah, b'shachvacha u'v'kumecha, right? At evening time and when you get up in the morning. So at a minimum, Kriya Shema recited at night and the morning would be applied to that chiyuv. You can be yotze the chiyuv of Talmud Torah. So committing to get up and learn Torah, learn the daf, that's extra. That's extra credit. That's not mushba v'oimed. There's no shvu on that. And therefore, says the Gemara, that's why chayil shvu alay, a shvu can be applied to this commitment. Now the Ran points out that we can't learn this Gemara literally. Reading Krishma twice a day takes care of chiv Talmud Torah. It brings a raya from the Gemara Kedushin. We want to learn every free moment. as much as a person can, as much as the schedule allows. So how can the Gemara contend that just Krishma suffices? So he says a chiddush. True, there's a chiv Talmud Torah all the time. The Rush brings the other pasuk in Yeshua, V'agisa b'yomim v'layla. It's a constant mitzvah, a constant obligation, but it's not beferush in the pasuk. The pasuk doesn't really express that clearly. It's a drasha. At least the runs, the pasuk v'shinantami. That's a drasha. That Torah should be clear and within one's reach. That only comes by learning constantly. So it's a drasha. And the Ran has a chiddush that if it's a halacha learned from a drasha, it's not a pasuk, a clear pasuk, then you can add a shvuah to that. There's no issue of adding a shvuah to another shvuah because it's not a clear pasuk. That's a chiddush of the Ran, and that explains this halacha as well. Because in terms of what the pasuk is telling you, Krishma would be enough. So adding anything to that can be done by way of a shvuah. Continues the Gemara with halacha number 3 from the same Manda Amar. Amar Gidol Amarav. Here comes an interesting one. Reuben turns to his friend Shimon. He says, tomorrow morning we're going to get up early. We're going to start our Seder. We're going to our daf together. Nashkem, we'll get up early and learn this portion of Torah. What is the halacha? It obligates him. Who? Reuben, the one who initiated this commitment. So number 1, he has to do it. Number 2, he has to be the one to come early. Because after all, he initiated it. He started it. Which indicates that he's willing to lead the show. He'll be there first. As the Ran points out, we're speaking, he didn't even express any lashon of neder or shvuah. This Kabbalah is sufficient to obligate him, as we find by tzedakah. We learn from a pasuk of Picha to tzedakah, just a Kabbalah, just a verbal commitment counts. And he's meant to be there first, as we find by Hashem Yisbarach, who summoned Yecheskel to come out and meet him, and Hashem was there first. Hashem turns to me, this is Yecheskel speaking. Go out to the valley, where I will speak with you. And Yecheskel followed, I went out there, Hashem already standing there waiting for me. So the fellow who initiated this idea, the fellow who said the Nashkim V'nishna, he has to go learn and be there first. So we have 3 halachos from the same Manda Amar, Rav Gidol Amarav. Number 1 was the concept of Shvuah l'kayim as a mitzvah, to be mezarish yourself, to spur you to a stronger commitment in terms of keeping Torah mitzvahs. Number 2 was Mekabeli Shvuah, to learn a specific amount of learning. That is chal, that gets activated as a full-fledged Shvuah. And the 3rd case, even without saying Shvuah, in terms of committing to doing a mitzvah to learn Torah, you don't even have to say Shvuah. And it obligates you to the point that you have to be there first if you were the one who offered the deal. Okay, now we're shifting over to the halachos of cherem, of nidui, of excommunication. Amar Rav Yosef, nidu b'chalayim. Suppose, during one's dream, he experienced a situation where he was excommunicated by whomever. Tzorach yud b'nei adam lahater lo. He needs to take that seriously. He needs to find 10 people. We know that 10 Yidden bring down the Shechina, who will release him from that nidui status. Why? Says the Ran, because perhaps the nidui that he experienced during his dream was heaven sent, was b'shlichus shel makayim, which requires a proper releasing procedure. 10 people who will use the power of Shechina to counteract, so to speak, the nidui that he was placed in. What type of 10 people? People who are Tamid Chachamim, V'hu detanu hilchasa, those who learn halachos of Gemara, and they have the ability to release him from this state. Aval masnu, but if they're merely fellows who are engaged in learning, but mishnayos, not on the level of a Gemara, v'lo yitanu, they don't learn Gemara. Loi, you can't use them for this purpose. This is the Rashi's Pshat, the Mefarish, and this is others, but the Ran actually learns a bit differently. He says that Tanu means they learn just on their own. They don't teach others. And Masnu are the ones who convey Torah to others. They are Melamed Torah Lachirim. They have the ability to come here and help him out. So Masnu means they are ones that are Melamed Lachirim. L'chatchila, you need those people. V'lecha detanu hilchasa, if you can't find people of such stature, afilu masnu, even the first degree of simple learners, v'lo tanu, who don't impart to others or who don't learn Gemara, at least use them. V'lecha, if you can't even find those people, what's the solution? Lezel, you should go v'leisev, aparshas drachim, go sit on the at the fork in the road. V'yoiv shloman, offer shalom aleichem lebeyud until you get to 10 people. So offer shalom to 10 people. Ad the makli liasara, the gamri hilchas, until you actually find 10 suitable people who are well versed in Gemara, etc., who attend to your issue. But until then, at least you'll have this protection, this temporary protection. The Ran says, by offering somebody shalom aleichem and getting that response aleichem shalom, they'll we offer him a protection, a temporary protection from any yisurim, any difficulties, until he can actually release himself from this status. It's interesting to note that we do say, Shalom Aleichem 3 times at the Kiddush Lavana ceremony, perhaps for the same purpose. Shalom Aleichem, and getting that response, Aleichem Shalom, gives you special bracha and protection for the upcoming month. Omar le Ravina, the Rav Ashi. I have a question to you, Rav Ashi. Yoda man shamte mal. Suppose he's aware of the identity of the individual who placed him in that shamta and that cherem in his dream. Mao delishule. Can he go back to that person to release him? Typically, the chacham who imposes cherem can remove it. Difference is, this time it was in a dream. But can he go back to him to take care of it? Amalei, Rav Ashi responds in the negative. Why? Perhaps Hashem sent him as a shliach to place him in cherem. It was in the name of Hashem. But but in heaven they didn't perhaps enable him to release you of this cherem. So if he was, really the one who gave you the cherem, in a non-dream situation, in a wakeful state, then of course he has the ability to remove it. But in this case, perhaps he was sent by Hashem, in which case he was only empowered to give it, but not to remove it. Amar le Rav Achla Rav Ashi. Another question. Shamte, a fellow experiences this cherem. He was placed in cherem during his dream. V'shar b'chome, and he also was released during that same dream as well. What would he say to this situation? Amalei says, it's still trouble. Just like we know that grain cannot, cannot keep below heaven without a little hay mixed in. That's just the way it is. A person cannot experience a fully reliable and accurate dream. Every chaylam has some sort of, silliness to it. So you never know which part of the dream was real and which wasn't. He was placed in the cherem and he was removed from the cherem. Maybe part 1 was real, part 2 was not. So he has to look after it properly. Ravina had a story. Harvale nidro levisu. Ravina's wife had a nether, which she wanted to, dissolve. You can do that by going to a chacham and being mischaret, expressing regret. So Ravina wanted to do it for her. Also, like Rav Ashi, he comes to his Rabbi Rav Ashi. Amar lei, he asks him a question. Baal Moshe ya'asa shliach l'charatas ishte. Is it okay for a husband to go approach the chacham, present his wife's charata, his wife's regret, and release her from her nether? According to the Rambam, the Ram quotes the Rambam, the question is only presented regarding a husband and wife because they are one unit. Ishtaki gufa. But typically you can't do a shliach for somebody else. But he brings from Taisus just the opposite. Of course, a regular person could be a shliach for this purpose. And the chiddush is even a husband. Perhaps He's motivated. He'll, tweak his presentation to ensure proper results. So the question was posed specifically for a husband: is it okay for him to represent his wife? Amar lei, Rav Ashi responds, well, it depends. If they were already sitting there, the bezdin is already sitting there, in which case you didn't really expend much effort to put them together, which would perhaps encourage you to tweak your presentation to ensure proper results. They're already sitting there, so it didn't involve much tircha. Then it's okay for him to present his wife's case and get a release on her behalf. Eloi, but otherwise, loy, then don't do it. Shema minot las, we listen, we hear, we derive, we conclude 3 halachos from this episode of Ravina, who did not tend to his wife's neder right then and there. He could have just taken care of his wife himself or had some talmidim take care of it, but he didn't. He went to his Rebbe Rav Ashi to look after it. So bottom line is, from the whole story and Rav Ashi's response, we can learn 3 things. Shema minot las. Number 1, Shema minot baal nasa shliach l'rchatas ishtay. It's okay for a husband to represent his wife. Number 2, Shema minot leishari. It's inappropriate lemishri nidra b'asid rabbi, for a rav to release somebody from a neder where his Rebbe lives. And that explains why Ravina did not tend to it on his own, because it was Rav Ashi's malkin. Number 3, Ushma Mina, even when a husband represents his wife, if the Chachamim are already sitting there, already gathered, then it's okay. Continues the Gemara with a slightly related halacha. V'shamta, this whole discussion is regarding a neder. Don't look after somebody's neder if your Rebbe is right around the corner. It's inappropriate. It's not honorable. What about if a person is in a cherem? He's desperate to get out. V'shamta, afilu ba'asar de Rabbi. Even if it's your Rebbe's community, you have the ability to remove shamta, release a person from cherem. Apparently, this is not, an advanced legal process which requires you to defer to your Rebbe. Number 2, even a single individual, a Talmud Chacham who is an expert in these halachas, Shari Shamta, he has the ability to release somebody from his cherem. Continues the Gemara. Amar Rab Shimon bar Zvid, Amar Rab Yitzchak bar Tavla, in the name of Amar Rab Chia bar Aricha, who was the Rab Acha, who I guess in the base manager of Acha, who said in the name of Amar Rab Zer, Amar Rab Lezer, Amar Chanina, Amar Rab Yashem, in the name of whom Mishmed Rabbi Yehuda bar Eloi. Okay, what did they say? What does the pasuk mean when it says pasuk Malachi? The sun will shine for you, those of you who fear my name. Who are these people? Elu b'nei Adam refers to people who are petrified of invoking Hashem's name in vain. And the pasuk continues, Shemesh, tzedakah u'marpe. For these people, the sun will provide tzedakah and healing. Amar Abaye Shmamina, we learn from here, Charga diyami, the rays of the sun, masi, they heal. Upliga de Reb Shimon ben Lakish. This pshat, presented by these Manda Amram of this pasuk, is in dispute. Of Reb Shimon ben Lakish, or a different pshat. That this pasuk is referring to the days in the future, la'asad lavai, days of Tchias HaMesim. The Amar ein gehinaim, la'asad le'elam haba. Le'elam haba, after Tchias HaMesim, there won't really be Gehenim. There won't be a need to have a special, location called Gehenim. The Gehenim process will just be a default process. Those who will not be able to tolerate these schar tzadikim, that will be their difficulty. That will be their Gehenim. Ein Gehenim le'elam haba, ela kadosh baruch hu. Rather, Hashem extracts the sun, the source of light and warmth, from its case, as opposed to today. And then it's going to be really shining in full force. So this immense light, which represents the most intense revelations of Hashem's spirituality, tzaddikim misrapim, that will afford remedy and healing for tzaddikim. And that, the ray in itself, that very revelation will apply judgment to Rishayim. They won't be able to tolerate this immense light. That will be their oynish. Shemesh. For the Yirei Shemi, for the tzaddikim, I will shine forth my my light, my sun. So for them, it's going to be remedy, refuah. Not only that, it gives them immense pleasure. They'll have immense pleasure from that. You go out in your pasture like the animals in the pasture. That will be the most intense pleasure and enjoyment of connecting to Hashem, blessed love. And that same very light will be shut out from the Rishonim. They will experience immense difficulty just being exposed to this light, which is totally not on their wavelength. For Rishonim, since they're not really deserving of that light, they're not really able to relate to it. It's going to be a tsar for them. It's going to be like a burning furnace for them. I once saw from the Maharal, he says the Einish of Rishonim, it isn't necessarily a separate place. It's the point that you can't, the frustration of not being able to experience and take part in this heavenly experience of Elam Haba. So let's briefly recap today's daf. We have 3 halachos in the name of Rav. In the first case, it's mutter, it's appropriate to utter a shvuah, to encourage oneself to be mekayim Torah mitzvahs. We learned a chiddush that when it comes to limud Torah, a shvuah can be legally binding. And number 3, nashkim v'neshna perek zeh, even without even saying the lashon shvuah, the Kabbalah obligates, the Kabbalah commits, he has to go and be there first. A person experiences a nidui b'chalayim, he needs 10 people to undo it. And if the person who did it, you can't go back to him. Perhaps he was heaven sent. And even if he was released from the Shamta in the Khair, that's not enough. We learned that a husband can represent his wife in terms of undoing her nether. Suppose the Chacham already summoned, they're already sitting there. You're not meant to do Hataras Nedarim. You can't tend to somebody's nether in the place of one's Rebbe. But Shamta, that's okay to remove even Ba'asr the Rabbi. Even the Yachid can do that. And the Pasuk describes the intense pleasure that Tzaddikim will be Zeichel Asad Lavai. You should all be Zeichel, Meher B'Meinu Amen.